Do you want to become fluent in Spanish? Well, it all starts with verbs. In this video, I'll show you how learning just a few everyday verbs can unlock thousands of sentences, making you sound like a native in no time. Plus, I'll reveal the secret weapon that most people ignore, the conjugation table. Master these and you'll be speaking Spanish than you ever thought possible. Vamos! So let's first take a look at some basic conjugation tables. Now, if you haven't learned about these before, then these are going to blow your mind, and they're the holy grail of learning Spanish. Do you struggle with memorizing all the different tenses and words and all that we have in Spanish? Well, not anymore, because these are going to help you. Yes, we do have irregular verbs which follow irregular conjugation patterns, but for any regular verb, so a verb that follows regular conjugation patterns, so the patterns based off of these tables, then any new regular verb that you learn, you'll be able to instantly conjugate it. Okay, so in this video, we'll only be taking a brief look at the present tense indicative, okay, and only looking at regular verbs like hablar, comer, and vivir. Okay, so let's get into it. We have this conjugation table, okay, so we have o, as, a, amos, and an. What does that mean? Okay, well, in this little corner, this will be for the yo person, meaning I, okay? The first person singular, yo, okay? Next, we have as, okay? This is for the two person, the informal you, okay? Because in Spanish, we have the formal, which is usted, okay? Then we have a, okay? Now, a is for él, ella, and usted, the formal, okay? So he, she, and you, formal, okay? Then we have amos for nosotros, meaning we. Here, this is typically for vosotros, which is only used in Spain, so we won't be going over that. I only teach a more Latin American-based Spanish. And finally, we have an for ellos, ellas, and ustedes, okay? So they, so that can be all male. That could be 99 males and 1 female. That can be for ellos. Then we have ellas, which is only female, meaning they. And then we have ustedes, meaning you all or you guys. Now, in Latin America, ustedes is used both formally and informally. In Spain, the reason we use vosotros is because that is to refer to a group informally. Okay, but in Latin America, so Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, wherever you go, ustedes will be both formal and informal. Okay, great. So notice how I have this here. This is for AR verbs. Okay, so in Spanish, we have 3 different kinds of infinitive verbs. An infinitive verb just meaning something like this, a verb that is in its infinitive form. It has not been conjugated, okay? So if we take a look at our rules, now if I want to say I speak, based off of our rule, if I cut off the AR, which is why I underlined it, we cut it off and now we have hablo, okay? Hablo. Then we'll add on our new ending, so let's do the yo person. So we have yo hablo, I speak, okay? In the infinitive, this means to speak. Voy a hablar, I am going to speak, okay? But this, cut it off, add on the new ending, we have hablo, okay? I speak. Now, hablas, you speak. Habla, okay? He speaks, she speaks, you speak, right? That's usted habla, it's formal. Nosotros hablamos, we speak. Nosotros hablamos. And then ellos hablan. Ellas hablan. And ustedes hablan. Okay? So this is what's cool. Because in Spanish, we don't have to use the subject pronouns if we don't want to. What's the subject pronoun? It's the person like yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, for example. So that's why oftentimes native speakers won't say yo hablo or tú hablas. They will say hablo or hablas. Okay, that's really cool. It allows us to shorten up our sentences. Okay, so that's for AR verbs. Okay, this is a rule here. If you don't already have these, I highly recommend you take a picture of this or you download the free PDF in the description. It has a link to all of these tables and all of the verbs that we're going to learn in this video. We're going to be learning quite a few and all of their different descriptions, as you can see here. Okay, next we have ER verbs. Okay, a verb like comer, meaning to eat. So we have o, es, hemos, en. Okay, so remember, yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, and ellos, ellas, ustedes. Okay, yo como. Remember, we cut off the ending here, so now we have com. Then we add the o, yo como. Tú comes. Él, ella, usted come. Nosotros comemos. Ellos, ellas, ustedes comen. It's that simple. Granted, we have different tenses in Spanish and we also have moods, okay? So don't get those confused with tenses because moods are not tenses. For example, this is the indicative mood. The indicative mood in Spanish talks about things of fact, whereas the subjunctive mood, for example, it talks about things of doubt. We also have what we call the imperative mood, which is basically commands, okay? So now that you have learned these, help me conjugate this infinitive IR verb, vivir, meaning to live. So based off our rules, how do we conjugate this? Well, we cut off the end, so now we have vive, and then we will have yo vivo, tú vives, él, ella, usted vive, nosotros vivimos, ellos, ellas, ustedes viven. Now notice how between ER and IR infinitive verbs, the conjugation tables are exactly the same. The only difference is in the nosotros person. So for the ER verb, we have hemos, and for the IR verb, we have hemos. So that makes your life a little bit easier. Okay, so this is a quick review of these. If you haven't learned these before, I highly recommend that you review this video, check out the free PDF, and you can also check out on my website. We have a really in-depth lesson on how to conjugate verbs in the present tense indicative. Well, let's move on to the side of the whiteboard now. Now we're going to take a look at some of the most common verbs that we have in Spanish. Like I said, you need to learn important verbs in Spanish if you want to be able to have conversations with people. So let's take a look. We have ser versus estar, which could be its own lesson in and of itself. Ser meaning to be, and estar also meaning to be. What's the difference? Ser is permanent, estar is temporary. Get that into your head. Ser is permanent, estar is temporary. For example, soy aburrido. Notice how I put here in parentheses the subject pronoun because we don't need to say yo soy. We can if we want, but because we understand our conjugation rules, we could just say soy. Now granted, these are both irregulars, so soy doesn't follow a regular conjugation pattern, but we understand when I say soy, I'm saying I am. Soy aburrido. I'm boring. And that's a permanent thing. That's a character trait. Whereas if I say estoy aburrido, that means I am bored temporarily. So the difference here, I am a boring person versus I'm bored. I feel bored. Okay? So that's important to understand. Ser is permanent, estar is temporary. Next we have the verb tener, meaning to have, to physically have something. For example, yo tengo un perro. Okay? Yo tengo un perro. Once again, this is not following regular conjugation patterns. Now, if you can't roll your R's, no worries. I have a video on the channel about this, but the idea here is that you bring the tongue up to that little bump at the top of your mouth. That's what we call the alveolar ridge, okay? Feel the bump there? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna put your tongue up there lightly, and you're gonna blow out air. Then you're gonna either move your tongue forwards or backwards, and hopefully your tongue will catch, and it will create the rolling sound. It'll take practice. We're not gonna go in depth in this video, but that's the idea. Tengo un perro, okay? Hacer, meaning to make or to do. For example, yo hago mucho ejercicio. I do lots of exercise. Yo hago mucho ejercicio. Now, if you want to say make, I could say yo hago un pastel. Yo hago un pastel. I make a cake. Okay? And finally, we have this awesome little verb, ir, meaning to go. Once again, it's an irregular and it doesn't follow regular conjugation patterns. We have yo voy, I go, or I am going. Sometimes in Spanish, we have this idea that we have a verb in the present indicative tense. When we say yo voy, you might think, oh, that just means I go. But if something is happening in the near future, we can use this as we would in English as an ing verb. For example, I am going. So it's very common if a mother were to call out to their child and say, Martín, ven acá. Martín, ven acá. Martín, come here. Martín could say, voy, or yo voy. I'm coming, I'm going. Okay? So there you have that. Now we have the common verb decir, meaning to say or to tell. For example, siempre digo la verdad. I always tell the truth. Now, when we have a word like siempre or nunca, we can either put it at the beginning of the sentence or at the end of the sentence. So we can say siempre digo la verdad, or digo la verdad siempre. This sounds a little bit more natural to me. However, you can say both. Next, we have ver, meaning to see or to watch. Careful with the pronunciation of the V in Spanish because B and V in Spanish both make the same sound. Now, you could say that when a word starts with V, it might sound a bit more like the V in English, but I find that students often get confused when I say this. So I think it's better just to remember that B and V in Spanish both make the same sound. So in this case, it's kind of like a soft B sound, okay? So ver, okay? Voy a verte, for example, okay? So to see or to watch, for example, casi no veo la tele. Casi no veo la tele, okay? I almost don't watch TV. Casi, meaning almost. Casi no veo la tele. I almost don't watch TV. Don't really watch a lot of TV, okay? Dar, meaning to give. Doy clases de español. Doy clases de español. I give Spanish classes. Saber, meaning to know or to find out. So if I say yo sé, that means I know. Notice how there's an accent over the E. Why is this? Because without an accent, sé is a completely different thing. It's actually a pronoun. Now, sé with an accent on it and sé without an accent on it are pronounced exactly the same. Now, that's the case sometimes with accents to what they don't necessarily change the pronunciation, but they're just allowing us to understand in a written context that one means I know and the other is a pronoun. Yo sé, I know, versus yo supe, que yo supe ayer. When we put the verb saber in the preterite tense, then it changes the meaning to find out. Yo supe ayer. I found out yesterday. So sometimes when verbs are put into the past tense, their definitions actually change, okay? All right, so let's take a look now at this side of the whiteboard. Querer, meaning to want or to love. It's a very common verb, one of the most common ones. Quiero comer. Remember, based off of what we learned, we don't need to say yo quiero because we understand quiero means yo quiero. I want. Quiero comer. I want to eat. Quiero comer. Now we also have the sentence te quiero, meaning I love you. You could literally translate that to I want you, which could take on a different connotation, but it's very common for us to say te quiero, meaning I love you. Now, many students will ask me, Nate, what's the difference between te quiero and te amo? Te quiero is a more chill version of saying I love you, whereas te amo is a bit more strong. So maybe with a friend, you would say te quiero, whereas with your husband or wife, you would say te amo, okay? Pasar, meaning to pass or to happen. For example, you may have heard the common phrase, ¿qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? Literally, what is happening or what's up. Now, notice how this is in the third person singular. It's in the él, ella, usted form, okay? The reason is that when we're talking about things we don't know about, that we haven't mentioned a specific thing, we will use the third person singular. Or if we're talking about an animal or an object, for example, we will use the third person singular. Next, we have creer, meaning to believe, okay? Oftentimes, native speakers will also use this as the idea of to think, okay? For example, no te creo. I don't believe you. No te creo, okay? Now, this te right here is a direct object pronoun. Now, we're not going to get into that in this video, but if you want to learn more about that, you can do so on my website, SpanishNate.com. I have an entire lesson going over direct and indirect object pronouns. Next, dejar, to allow or to leave, okay? For example, te dejo en paz. Literally, I leave you in peace, or the idea is I will leave you alone. Like, all right, see you later, te dejo en paz. I'll leave you alone, okay? I leave you in peace. Te, once again, being that object pronoun, okay? We could also say something like, yo dejé mi mochila en el cuarto. I left my backpack in the room. Or voy a dejar mi mochila en el cuarto. I'm going to leave my backpack in the room. Bueno, yo sé que todo esto ha sido mucha información y está bien. Aquí tienen un free PDF in the description. Check it out. We have all of these things that we went over today, plus the conjugation table, so I think those are going to help you a lot. Muchas gracias por ver el video y espero que tengas muy buen día. Hasta luego.